I don't think being redeemed is something that it's just like, oh, you're better now, you're redeemed. I think it's something that you gradually gain as you grow better. And it's something that you can gradually like feel more present in yourself the more and more you grow. And then once you finally do look back on what you were before, you realize how far you've come.
Welcome to Culmination, where everything comes together. In the process of becoming our best self, I have with me the plant genetics major, Johnathon Osborn, to discuss the idea of regret and what that entails. So with that said, let's get started. So, Johnathon, what is regret in your own words?
Well, to me, regret is one of the feelings you feel when you remember a mistake you made. Whether it was a mistake of doing something or not doing something, it's remembering that and reliving it.
Reliving it. What does that exactly mean?
I guess it means like it's like watching a movie knowing how it ends, you know? Like you're watching yourself make the mistake knowing that it's going to end badly for yourself and knowing that in like the process of watching it is the feeling of regret, to me at least.
So, do you have an example to kind of showcase this?
Yeah. Um so when I was young, I I was not the nicest kid, and I would go around like just being a jerk to a lot of people. But there was one case in particular where I was so mean to someone that I made them cry in front of the entire class. And at the
Hmm.
time, I didn't feel anything. But looking back on it, like for years and years, I felt like really terrible because that person was my friend, and I basically, I acted like a jerk to them to the point where they felt like they needed to cry in front of a whole bunch of people, you know?
Hmm.
And just watching that over and over, I'm thinking like, man, I was so stupid.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's like the one of the biggest things that I can remember regretting, uh, in like that sort of scenario.
Yeah, it's interesting how you mentioned it's like a movie because it's almost like in your mind, you're forced to go to the cinema of all of your memories, and sometimes it just keeps playing the same movie over and over again, and it doesn't exactly change anything. Nothing's really done about it. It's just kind of haunting in a sense.
Yeah,
Would you say so?
yeah, I'd say it's pretty haunting, especially when it happens like when you don't expect it. People make the joke like when they're about to fall asleep and then they remember something they did like years and years ago that
Yeah,
they
yeah.
regret. Yeah, it and that can keep you up at night. It's not a fun thing to experience.
And I definitely have those moments myself. So, why do you think we really have these experiences? Like, think about it. These things are pretty arbitrary in terms of the grand scheme of our life and the lives of those we've impacted or whatever the situation may be. And we've grown as people. Like, we've moved on over time. We know we've changed. We know we are at least different, maybe not necessarily better, but different. So, why would something from a completely different time when we were completely different people and others were different and the world was different, why would that still haunt us with the same magnitude each time and since the original event?
Well, I think that it haunts us as we move on through life because of how impactful it was to us at that time. You
Hmm.
know, if something's impactful to you one day, it's not just going to lose all meaning as you grow older. You're going to remember it, and you're going to think back on it and look at what you could have done or what you did do that made it so impactful, and this can be a good thing or it can cause you to feel a lot of regret for what you did or what you didn't do, you know?
Right.
And I
So
think,
what do we oh, what?
well, I was going to say that I think that that feeling is what drives us to actually be different in the future than it does like from what we were then. It
Hmm.
drives us to be better or to be different or to keep doing what we were doing if it was a good thing.
Yeah. So do you want to elaborate on that since my what I was going to say was just like what do we do about this?
Yeah, well, I think the best way to look at it is to look at regret like a scary teacher of life, you know? I mean, it
A
sounds
strict
funny, but
teacher.
yeah, the strict teacher, the one that forces you to look at your mistakes. Because
Mm,
the more you look at your mistakes, you see what went wrong and how you can fix yourself or how you can be better in the future, you know?
right.
Uh, because there's nothing that, or at least personally, I don't feel that there's anything a lot of humans hate more than failure, making the mistake. They want to be good, they want to be as close to perfect as possible. And I think that
Right.
regret is a good tool to get us there.
Hmm. So do you have any examples of your own of how you've kind of climbed out of this state of regret, this haunting feeling because of the teacher that it is? Like it's kind of a weird way of saying it, but hopefully you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah, I get it. Yeah, I've got a pretty good example. When I was in middle school, I don't know what happened, but I was not having a good time, It was
Mm.
the worst years of my life, to quote a movie. Um, and I got to a really low place. I wasn't doing good in school. Uh, I was drinking like dangerous amounts of coffee every day, staying up until like 6 in the morning, you
Oh
know.
wow.
Yeah, I mean, like at the point I was just like, I don't care, This it doesn't it's not
Right.
worth it anymore. Um, and I got so low to the point where my decisions like impacted the people around me, like
Hmm.
both emotionally and financially, you know.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I won't go too into detail about it, but it like
Yeah.
hurt my family, Um, and the moment I saw that it was such a big deal, I just immediately felt like I've been so stupid this entire time. I need to fix myself like immediately, you know? I can't keep
Hmm.
doing this. I felt such an intense feeling of regret for all the mistakes that I had made and I had like drowned out over the year that I was
Yeah.
like, I gotta fix this or else like it's just gonna get worse, you know?
Mhm.
And so like from that point on I tried to improve myself and tried to, keep myself like not exactly just better emotionally, but like, I tried to do better in school. I tried just making myself the person I wanted to be because when I didn't care, I didn't only hurt myself, I hurt everyone around me.
Right.
So that was like the biggest time regret like slapped me across the face and said, "Look at what you're doing to the people around you." You know.
Right. And it's interesting to see like the multitude of the kinds of regrets that exist. Like there's obviously different tiers where it's like maybe tier 1 is like, "Oh man, I regret talking to this person who's next to me or who I ran into at a coffee shop." And then hardcore regret is like I I don't know, like last words when someone's on their deathbed or something extreme like that. Um
Yeah.
but also besides the tiers of like the magnitude of the regrets, it's weird how like there's also like it's like sometimes the regrets are kind of petty, and that's a weird word to use, but sometimes they're petty and it's not like a slap in the face as you described, where it's something that's not as clear, maybe not petty, but it's a gray area, you know?
Mhm.
Um it might be something kind of minuscule, so it eats at you because it's so small that there's not really a message to take from it, and because there's no message, there's nothing you can actually take from it and improve upon. Versus regrets that are like you see like loud and clear, oh boy, this is bad and I need to fix this right now, you know?
Right. So what I'm getting is like sometimes regret isn't as big as that. It's just like, oh man, I did something dumb. There's nothing to really take away from it. It just keeps on gnawing at you. Even though like
Right.
it wasn't that big of a deal. You know.
Yes, because like it's hazy. It's not clear what to do about something like that. Those are the types of regrets that we have that just keep eating at us and we don't really know what to do about it because it's so small. I mean, the only thing to do about it is swallow the pill and accept there is nothing I could do about this. This is in the past. Shut up, brain. Like I'm done here, you
Yeah.
know? Like we're not thinking about this anymore, guys. I'm done with this. Uh, but nonetheless, that's so much easier said than done.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
uh, it is hard to like just accept the past for what it is, especially when it is gnawing at you for a long period of time. Even if you know, like, logically it shouldn't matter. Emotionally, it's still like stuck with you. And
right.
there's no other way to like feel better than to just accept that it happened and keep moving forward, you know?
Yeah. So I guess some examples from my end that I guess we'll put what I just said in perspective. One of the wake up call regrets I have was in 2018. So this was like the beginning of my sophomore year of high school. Um, I went on a Disney trip for band. I think it was marching band, and basically I went with all my friends and everything, and it was meant to be this really fun time to just hang out with everybody and go to Disney World. But it turned out to be one of the worst like experiences of my life. Um, to a point where I remember I remember coming home and as soon as I like stepped foot into my room and like it felt like life just kind of reset, like all right, we're back home now and that whole experience is over. I just felt this immediate sense of regret and it was so weird to me because the feeling that I had was wow, I was such an asshole that entire trip. And it was really weird to me how I just, I wasn't really thinking about that up until now, but all of a sudden it just hit me. And then um funnily enough, I learned later on that it wasn't just me who noticed that, but some of my good friends were very upset with me about my behavior. Um, I was not, I don't know what was going on, but I was not my best. I was like a completely different person on that trip. Um, so that was something that I was pretty regretful. I did not look at that trip pretty lightly, and ultimately, I had to step up, as you said. Like, I had to kind of redeem myself, not only for my friends' sake so they could stop hating me, but also I wanted to make things right just because I wanted to make things right for the sake of making things right. Like, it's not just about being redeemed, even from my own end. It's just like, this was not okay. We need to set things straight. So, that was a wake up call regret. But in the sense of the more like hazy, there's not really a lesson here, or it doesn't hit you like a truck. Um, it's kind of like little, like you're, like you're poisoned, and the poison just slowly corrodes you over time. It's hard to really address or know where the source is or the cause of this poison, but well, besides the regret itself, but you don't understand why it seeps in like it does and it continues. Um, but I guess one of those times would be like any of my experiences with women, frankly. I guess in the romantic sense, I have I don't know whether it was something I said or something that happened to me that I feel is out of my control, but probably had a lot to do with what was in my control. It's just like these little things. Like, obviously, I move forward, but these things still kind of haunt me to this day. Even things from like 4 years ago. And it's like it's hard to really know why, because in the sense all of the criteria is met to get out of this regret, you know? Like, I've shaped up, I've improved as a person, I've matured a lot, I am more knowledgeable. If the regrets are one thing, the fact that I'm haunted by it means that I've learned something, right? Or that I've been paying attention. But it just leaves me with this, it's almost like an adverse effect. It's not making me shape up, it's just keeping me down. It's making me fearful of the future where I might have an experience like that again. I've been talking for a while, so what do you have to say about that?
Sorry, I just wanted you to have like a complete thought.
No,
Um,
yeah. I appreciate it. It was just like the thought is done, so I wanted to say or see
right.
what you were thinking.
Well, when it comes to regret like that, even when you think that you've, bettered yourself and you've learned from it, I wouldn't say those are necessarily criteria for getting rid of the regret, you know? Regret can push you to make yourself be better, but to fully get rid of regret, I think the only thing that needs to happen is you need to accept that what happened is done and that you're not going to let it happen again, you know?
Right.
And if you don't fully understand why you regret it, I think that's a very important step to getting over experiencing like why exactly you feel so much regret for this. What went wrong. And sometimes it's clear cut and sometimes it's not. But
Mhm.
at the end of the day, once you understand what went wrong and you accept it went wrong, I feel you're ready to let go of that feeling. Um,
Yeah.
y- and that's why I think regret can be a teacher or it can be like a curse to some people, because not everybody grows from regret, Some people just
True.
deal with regret and they don't better themselves and they don't learn from it. Uh,
Or they get into a worse state like with alcohol or other
yeah,
supplements.
they use other things to make them forget about the regret, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, uh, sorry, I don't really know where I was going with that. I just think that the most healthy way to look at it is to learn from it and then to accept that you no longer need it. Like it's not helping you anymore, so it's just time to let go. You know?
Mhm. It's a very constructive approach.
I mean, it took me a while to think of regret like that, you know. There have been long nights where I just constantly thought like I'm such an idiot or why did I do this or why didn't I do this? I just
Yeah.
constantly beating myself up over that kind of stuff. And it took me a long time to finally think, you know, why am I beating myself up over something I can't change? Instead of doing that, why
Mm.
can't I just accept that it happened and move on knowing that I'm not going to let it happen again?
So what got you to that place of understanding?
It took a lot of self talk. I say self talk um, because this may not be the healthiest way to do it, but I when I'm really struggling with like a moment in the past between me and like another person, I
Hmm.
imagine what would I say to them if they were right in front of me and we were talking about this, and I fully unload, and that's how I get rid of the stress of regret. I
Mm,
just let everything that I'm feeling out, and then once that's over, I just I realize that now that it's out there, I know exactly what's wrong and I can let it
right.
go.
Once you say it, you can't really take it back anymore. You can't hide from it.
Yeah, and that's why I say it to no one, because if it's I don't wanna burn these bridges, you know?
Right.
Um,
And also, it might not be as important as you might think, you know?
yeah,
Like, it,
sometimes you'll think it through, and once you've grown up, you'll be like, "Oh, man, it wasn't that big of a deal." It's just it seemed like it at the time, you know?
right.
Yeah, but it
It's kind of like what meditation is all about, you know? Like, meditation, a lot of people think it's like, oh, clear your mind. But it's like, how do you do that? What does that mean to clear your mind? Well, it's to open up your mind, it's to get everything out. But what that entails is not hiding from all of these things that upset you. It's more about like letting them flourish, letting all of these feelings, whether they are some of the most vile things from the depths of of the hell inside of you. You need to let it out and listen to it and hear all of these crazy things that you think of, because it doesn't make you any less of a person if you have these crazy thoughts sometimes. Everybody has crazy thoughts. But in a time like meditation, it's time to get these things out, listen to them, understand them, and kind of process, all right, what is going on here? And I guess even though your way of thinking about it is slightly different than like, I don't know, like sitting down crisscross applesauce, like like you know, like it's not like the way you think of meditation.
right.
It is a meditation because in a sense you're talking to yourself, simulating it as in as if it was a an actual interpersonal experience exchange.
Yeah, it may not be the most sane thing to do, uh, but I found that it really helps to just imagine, like, what would you tell the person who, like, is like, you've wronged or who's wronged you if you could tell them anything, you know?
Right.
And that's what gets the true feelings out, not held back by anything, but you just, like, understanding what you're feeling and, getting the demons out and then realizing that they're not so scary after all. It's just normal human emotion. And
Right.
that's when you start to like learn and grow from it. Once you understand it, you can accept it. And once you accept it, you can move on from it. Yeah.
Right. And it's like the demons are a part of you too. It's like you can't run away from it. They want, because they're a part of you, they want you to accept them. They want you to acknowledge them. Like we are you, just as you are me. Like we're the same person, but you keep looking at us like we're horrible, and even though we're not the parts of you that you want to acknowledge, it's like when you try to look at your demons and accept them for what they are, you can this might sound scary or counterintuitive, but what it in turn does is it makes you realize your limitations. It makes you realize through like the sins inside of you, like take lust for an example. It's like if you are a very lustful person, you don't ever want to acknowledge that and you push it down, but the fact of the matter is maybe you are lustful. But when you acknowledge that, you then begin to understand, okay, why am I lustful? And then what does that mean? It's like maybe I'm lustful because the source of this sin is that I want love. And I want love so desperately to the point where it becomes twisted and it becomes something more about taking than giving and sharing. It becomes something that I'm not proud of. But when you just punish yourself for feeling these things that you feel, it ignores the main problem that needs to be addressed, that you want love. And once you know, finally, by addressing these demons, that you want love, you can figure out what to do. It's like, oh, okay, maybe I should put myself out there to start dating again or something, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Any thoughts on that?
Well, no, I think what you said is like near the bullseye. You know, uh, it's definitely, something that I think everyone, or maybe not everyone, but I think it's something that could help a lot of people. Just thinking of regret and their demons in a more positive light, is not something to hide away, but something to deal with and to actually accept, you know,
Right.
to get to the root of the problem.
Now, there can be a downside to it where, say, if you can acknowledge your demons, but if you just give up and don't want to think constructively, or maybe you're just feeling really down and kind of like how you were saying earlier, like you just don't care anymore. Um, Maybe you might acknowledge that you're lustful, but instead of trying to find the source of beauty behind it, you just take it as an excuse of, oh, well, I'm horny. I'm just going to go out and go to a club and pick up some hookers and stuff like that. Like, it could lead to bad behavior. Or if you're filled with immense anger, you're not trying to understand the anger. You're just going to be really angry and be rude to everyone around you and just be a nuisance,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, I get what you're saying. And that is something that a lot of people do, they know their problems and they don't work to fix them because they don't think they can be fixed, you
Or
know,
they don't care because of that. Yeah.
or they don't care. Um, but I think that that's something that comes down to not only like willpower, but also like the people around you, you know.
Right.
I'm very fortunate to come from, a family that loved me with all their heart and like supported me throughout all of my decisions, no matter what they were. But even
Yeah.
then, I still felt like, you know, sometimes neglected or sometimes like they didn't understand me, and that's fine. But I think that having them there and having them always by my side, even when it hurt them, you know, like during my worst time, I think that's what allowed me to grow and be the way that I am now. Like
Yeah.
if I didn't have them, I don't think I would have come to this conclusion of regret being a teacher. I think I would have, more likely turned out to be someone who used his regret as a crutch, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that the best thing that people can do for someone who's struggling with that, someone who knows their flaws and who knows their regret but doesn't do anything to change it. I think the best thing you can do is just try and show them that they are cared for and that they are important and that what they're doing is affecting the people that they care about,
Right.
whether it's being lustful and going out all the time and not spending any time with the people who actually do love them, or being angry and yelling at the people who love them, or anything. I think it's just important to show them that what's happening is affecting not only them, but the people that they love.
Right.
Because
Absolutely.
yeah, because nobody wants to be a jerk, you know. If someone's a jerk, it's not because they want to, it's because they are fighting with something inside themselves,
Right.
and like to believe that all of humanity wants to be nice to the rest. It's just a lot of bullshit that comes in between everyone. Like this could be expanded to any problem, but
Right.
interpersonal relationships are the easy ones to fix because those are like more clear cut than say, global politics.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's that makes me think of it's interesting how almost all of the source of our bad behavior, especially in a interpersonal sense, like being rude or overly angry to somebody or lustful, it's like it all comes out of a source of pain, like a burden that we feel. I mean, you've heard the things about like, oh, a bully is just somebody who's dealing with their own strife and are projecting it onto others, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Uh, Um, but it's odd to think how the source of these bad behaviors are pain, but also when you think of it from the inverse end, I like to think that things like wisdom and humility and things like that are from a source of pain as well. Like I've said it on this show a few times that I firmly believe that wisdom is essentially like the amber of just being, I guess. Like when you think about amber, it's beautiful, like shiny, almost like a mineral, you know? Like it almost looks like a diamond or something like that.
Mm,
But what it is this bug or insect or whatever it is trapped inside this casing of sap that has crystallized over time.
mm,
And when you see it now, like when you look at amber from the perspective of right now where you're seeing this shiny rock, it's beautiful, it's gorgeous, and that's what wisdom is, you know? It's like when you hear something very wise and understand it, it's so powerful, it's so meaningful and insightful, and we love it. It's beautiful. But you have to understand that there was at one time this amber was not amber. It was this fly that was its own like innocent thing that was flying around and got caught in literally a sticky situation.
right. Right.
And this sap slowly covered him to a point where he was stuck and he was basically eaten alive by sap. And it took years, years to fully encase over him. And that was not a pleasant process. But that's kind of what we are now, you know? Like as we grow as people, we're still in the process of like we are broken people. We are an unfortunate fly that got stuck in the sap and we can't get out of it, whether we try, you know? Like, this is the unfortunate truth and suffering of life. But hopefully, as we continue to grow, we can stop seeing this as this untamed force trying to consume us of all these sins and things that we hate about the world or our fears of demise or destruction, whether it's from our own hands or others. Maybe if we stop thinking of that, we can start to see it in a different sense, where this is going to make us beautiful someday. Because even though amber at one time was a source of pain and disgustingness, I guess, pain and disgust, now we can look at it as something beautiful.
Right. Yeah, I think that is a really good way to put it. That wisdom is born from pain, the same as, anger and, every bad emotion is born from pain. I think it
Right,
just depends on the person to choose what becomes of that pain. And
right.
it's not like, oh, you choose like a bad like anger, you can't go back. Nothing's
Yeah.
nothing's stopping you from going back. It's just most of the time when you do choose anger or something else, it clouds your judgment to the point where, like I said, you don't care anymore, so you don't hear the regrets anymore. You just live life going forward, making mistakes and saying that's life, you know.
Right,
But then I feel like if you're lucky, you'll get a moment like we had where life like slaps you in the face and you see all of the mistakes that you made at once. And it really wakes you up and not forces, but it encourages you to go back. and choose the other path to
Right.
wisdom and love, to make not only yourself but the world a better place, you know, and like
Yeah.
choosing not to be the fly anymore, but to become the amber and to take the time to become the amber, you know?
To give up what you once were for something more,
Yeah,
even if it looks different and it symbolizes the death of the past self.
yeah. I think that's a really good metaphor for what it means to accept and to move on from regret, you know?
Right. And I guess I think we have like 20 minutes left or something.
Mm,
I guess this kind of ties into an idea that I was thinking about for a while now. This idea of redemption.
mm,
That's a big word.
yeah,
What does it mean to be redeemed? And can we be redeemed? I know that's kind of a loaded question, but let's see how you do.
right. Well, I'll do my best. Um, Being redeemed can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. You have the religious sense in which, you were redeemed by God, but I think in the context of what we're talking about, the only person that can truly like redeem you is yourself, because have to you have to notice that you're in the wrong or you're like in a bad spot, like you need to be redeemed. That's the first step of this whole journey. And then once you realize that, you can start growing and, actually, how do I say it? You work at yourself. It's a bunch of steps where you try to be better than you were the day before. And, you know, throughout the process of doing this every single day, you forget that you're trying to be redeemed and you just keep working at yourself to be better, than the day you were before. And once I don't think being redeemed is something that it's just like, oh, you're better now, you're redeemed. I think it's something that you gradually gain as you grow better. And it's something that you can gradually like feel more present in yourself the more and more you grow. And then once you finally do look back on what you were before, you realize how far you've come, you know?
So in that sense, is it I guess you've kind of framed it as like a process. Well, I guess most people think about redemption as like a result, like a destination versus the journey type deal.
I I don't think that's a very I mean, people can look at it however they want, but I think looking at redemption as a result is counterintuitive because
Mm,
that adds, or it's not being better for the sake of being better. It's being better so you're not what you were before, or being
mm.
better so that way you can call yourself better. You know, uh,
Like sweeping it under the rug type.
yeah, it's like, look at me, I'm a new man. You know, after like a week of doing community service, after killing some guy. You know,
Okay.
I mean that's an extreme example, but I mean you get what I mean, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
That's a good point, yeah.
I think redemption is sometimes taken lightly if you view it as a result.
Mm,
I think it's best viewed as a process of trying to reach redemption, but always being like slightly out of reach. And then when you finally are reminded of what you were before, you realize that it's not really a goal, it's something that you build up, as you try to be better. You think, oh, I'm a good person now. Not because I want people to think of me as a good person, but because I tried to be a good person for me and
mm.
for the people I loved, you know?
Or less of like a I'm a good person now and more of a if somebody asks you like in an interview, like, "Do you think you're a good person?" It's like something you've almost like stopped paying attention to. It's like, huh, like I guess I'm a pretty good guy.
Yeah,
Like it's almost humble in that sense.
yeah, and I think humility is a big part of it too, you know? And I guess, like,
Right.
a good example of this could be, like, let's say you have an alcoholic, okay?
Yep.
And he's gone to an intervention with his friends and family, and they're like they show him that he needs to change or whatever, and he's like, "Yeah, I
Mhm.
know."
Or whatever.
Or whatever, yeah, I mean,
I just like that wording.
and so he goes to the AA meetings, he stops drinking, and he gets his, like, 30-day chip, you know? That's a big goal for alcoholics, being sober for
Right.
30 days. Um, Now there's 2 ways that the alcoholic can think of this. He can think, "Hey, look at me. I've been sober for 30 days. I'm a good guy."
Time to drink again. Or
Well,
that.
not exactly time to drink again, but, like, I've made it, you know? Like,
Right.
I've proof that I don't need alcohol. Or he can look at the 30-day chip, put it in his pocket, and go spend time with his family, you know?
Mm. Yeah.
Because one is looking for the goal of redemption, while the other is looking for the goal of being better than yesterday, you know?
Right. I like
Not
the greater purpose behind this. It's like I'm not trying to get off of alcohol for some grand like redemption. Like I just want to get off of alcohol because it's ruining my life.
yeah. I think redemption is less of looking for a goal and more of a solution to something that was ruining your life, you know? The problem that you
Mm.
had before, and it's the process of that, you know?
Right.
That's
Do
just
you
how I see
think
it.
yeah, yeah. I've never really thought of it as like a process. I've always thought of it as this grandiose like goal that I'm working towards, and it's like a celebration once you're redeemed. I mean, as weird as that sounds,
Mm,
I should kind of rephrase that cuz it sounds a bit too grandiose or romanticized, but
mm,
it's just like redemption is a big thing and I need it, but it almost creates this false expectation of will I ever get redemption for what I've done? But thinking of it as a process is like taking the small baby steps that I need to, and gradually over time I it's less of like a oh okay you're redeemed now congrats
yeah.
you've graduated from
Ooh.
being an asshole. It's less of a graduation and more of a would you say like a report card?
Yeah, like, you look back at it, like, every now and then, and it's like, "Oh, that's cool," and then you keep going, you know?
Right.
I think redemption being placed as a goal, like, allows people to stop right after they've been redeemed, you know?
Right.
I think if you think of it more like a fun little thing after you've already grown, you know, you can continue to grow more and be
Right.
better than you were the day before.
It's like you made it 30 days. Now try 60 days.
Yeah.
Like try bumping it up.
Try 90, try a year, you know, and try
Right.
forever, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Very interesting like thinking about regret because I knew this was an episode idea that I wanted to do for a while, but I think there's a lot of positives. Like it sounds like it would be a sad episode, but I think we've discovered a lot of positive things about it.
yeah, I mean, I've been thinking about it these last few days, and I thought, like, you know, there are some things that I do still feel regret for, like, I shouldn't have done that, but
Mhm.
I think, like, this past year, at the very least, I've dealt with a lot of those demons, and I've accepted them, and I've understood them, and I've grown, and I'm glad that I can share this sort of, like, thinking and process of it with you and to the viewers that watch this, you know,
Yeah.
because I think a lot of people think regret is scary, but it's just one of life's many teachers, you know? It's just trying to help
Yeah.
you in any way that it can. It's just
Yeah.
it's a little ugly.
Well, a lot of things are a little ugly.
Yeah, you know?
Maybe it's like the ugly duckling, where it's like you think it's this gross thing, but if you handle it well,
It becomes a
it
beautiful
will
swan.
it will become a beautiful swan.
Yeah.
So we're a little ahead of time, but
I mean,
do you have any? Huh?
we can keep going if you want. I just
I mean, like, do you have any like final talking points you want to discuss? Because I think we covered a lot.
yeah, it's weird how we could cover so much in such a short amount of time. Uh, it's such a complex thing to talk about, yet you know, so simple at the same time. Just,
Right.
um, I don't know. Enjoy life. You know, that's a big step too. Uh, if you regret anything, take a moment away from it, step back, don't think about it for like a day, and then come back, and then look at it calmly, not filled with the emotions you were feeling at the time, but fill it with the knowledge you have now. You know,
Right.
if you can do that, then you'll look at it a lot less of a painful experience and a lot more like something you can learn from. You know.
Yeah. Another thing is like my dad's a big fan of this quote. I think it's from Joseph Campbell, who wrote The Power of Myth, but I'm not necessarily sure if this quote comes from that book or just Joseph Campbell in general. I know it's from him. So it's find your bliss,
Mhm.
which entails like just whatever you enjoy doing, pursue that. Find your bliss. Like whatever that may be. Like it could be bird watching, it could be watching NASCAR, it could be playing Pokemon games from 2010. It could be going on a walk with a good buddy or maybe a pack of good friends. It could be playing baseball. It could be whatever, like something you enjoy, something that brings meaning to your life.
Yeah, that's a good quote. I I kind of believe, like, I believe a similar thing. You know, like my motto is don't do something that you don't want to do in a very
Mm,
simple way. Like, because I think it's a good idea to go out there and try new things, but if you're not happy in what you're doing, don't pursue it. Like cut it off
right.
right there and look for something that truly does bring you happiness, you know?
Because it's like, like a lot of people go to college with the idea of a career like engineering. I mean, we go to Purdue, so we see that a lot.
Yeah.
Um, you were even one of them, right?
Yeah, I applied to be a biological engineer, and during the first week of engineering class, I found that I hated it. So I switched, you know,
Right.
and I have
Like,
not been in a better place since. But I guess, yeah, I mean, it's been the best decision of my time here at Purdue.
yeah. Because it's like a lot of people think about being an engineer because it's like, oh, I want to get a good job that pays bank. Like that's the dream.
Yeah,
But that's not necessarily foolproof unless you love what you do?
yeah,
Like if you love being an engineer and you're interested, then the classes are gonna fly by, you're gonna get good grades, you're gonna care about what you're learning about, and then eventually when you do enter the real world with your job, you'll love what you do. And it helps that you get paid bank for it.
yeah,
But maybe maybe you think you want to do something that pays well, but you would want to do something like being a teacher, which might not pay well, but that might hold a much more valuable future for you? Like if you love working with people and love teaching things, maybe it's like you love history and you want to teach that or math, you know?
yeah. I think, you know, finding your bliss, or at least like finding the things that don't make you happy and avoiding those in the terms
Yeah.
of careers. or like even just like hobbies is a good way of, avoiding regret, you know?
Yeah.
It's a good way of, just avoiding regret. Because if you do what you
Exactly.
want to do, then you won't regret the things that have brought you there. But if you like suffer through the classes and then you find that the job's not satisfying, you'll think like, man, why did I do this? Even if I'm getting paid a lot, why am I doing this? You know?
And you get doomed to a job that you spent your whole academic life working towards
Mhm.
just to now you might get fiscal compensation and that might be okay. And some people might enjoy a life where they might not necessarily love their job, but they get paid enough that
They
they
can,
can afford a lot of the fun things outside of it, um, like in their personal lives.
yeah,
But the point is, like, don't do anything that you will regret because especially now in college, like we're freshmen. So this is a very pivotal point of our life because we have to start thinking about our future and the choices we make because if we don't or if we make the wrong choices, then we could possibly regret it.
mm,
And don't be alarmed or scared at the idea of, oh shit, I gotta make the right choice, you know? Because you will know you will know when it's right, I feel, you know?
yeah. I think,
That natural intuition.
yeah, you know,
But you have to choose to listen to it. And sometimes it's scary because it's like maybe you're an engineer for like a year and then you realize you hate it. That's scary because you already quote unquote wasted a year. But I put quotes there because you still learned stuff and you learned the valuable lesson above all that this isn't right for you, you know?
yeah. This this is a good way of looking at it to avoid regret.
Right.
Yeah. So that's if you want to. That's really the only way you can avoid regret. Just do stuff that you want to do. Don't do stuff that makes you like sad. You know. You know.
Right. I guess like sometimes you gotta I guess, like, to play devil's advocate, sometimes you gotta, like, buckle down. Like, if you are struggling to pay rent,
Right.
you can't necessarily say, "Well, my dream is to become a post-impressionist artist,"
Right.
because you need money, you know? So, like, you kind of have to balance reality with your dreams,
Right.
but at that point, it's kind of a sticky situation. I think the bottom line is, like, for the most part, don't do what you hate, but sometimes if you're in that situation, you would need to like make sure you're grounded, you have your stuff together. In this case, like the finances. So
Right.
once you're off the ground and you're not struggling from paycheck to paycheck, then you can actually worry about pursuing what you want to do, you know?
I think that that's a good way of looking at it, but I also think that you know there are times when you're gonna have to buckle down. Like if you're working at a 7-Eleven or a fast food place and you're not enjoying the job,
Uh-huh.
you're gonna have to buckle down. But I don't think that you should stop looking for something that you want
Right.
to do. You know,
Yep.
like if there's a different job that you think you'll do well at, or you think that you'll like have fun at, I don't think you should stop looking for that job or that
Yeah.
hobby or something. I just think that you need to balance out that search for something more with your current situation. You know,
And
you
it's like I worked at a pizza place for a while and one of my good buddies there, he was writing a book, like a superhero novel, um, like on the side. He needed money, so he kept working at this place for years. Um, and even though he had to buckle down and continue working at a place where he didn't particularly like love, he could still look for what he wanted to do. Um, and he also did things as well. Like he was writing that book on the side. Eventually, he went to a university to take a class on like um
Narrative
Forgot
writing.
like the official name, but like gardening and flowers and
Oh.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, like he was like still looking for all of that stuff, you know?
And that's the way you got to do it. Even if you do buckle down in something that you're not exactly happy with, that shouldn't limit you. It shouldn't be like the end. You can still go
Yeah,
out and search for something that does give you happiness. You know,
right.
and as
Yeah,
long as you remember that, you'll never truly be locked into anywhere. You'll just be like in a seatbelt. Keeping you
right.
safe for the time being while you go out and search for your next destination.
And I guess as long as we keep growing, I mean, this is kind of the way I view it. On a small scale, yeah, there's things I regret. And it's just natural. But on a large scale, I don't really regret anything. And the reason why is because everything that I've been doing up to this point, the good, the bad, the ugly, and however that reference goes, that uh, all of it culminates, fitting word, but
Mhm.
into the man I am now and the life I have now. So as long as I continue on an upward trend and keep improving and keep my heart in the right place and everything like that, I think I think things are good and I don't really regret anything.
Great, man. I'm happy for you.
How about yourself?
I got some room to grow, but I think I'm closer than I ever have been to the man I want to be.
That's awesome. And you'll keep working and when you get there, it's kind of like you said, it's like it's not a yes. I beat the game.
Yeah, it's more like time to start the next chapter.
Yes. Right. So with that said, I guess this is perfect timing. Um thank you so much for joining me, Jonathan.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I'm really happy with how this episode went, and I hope the audience has learned something about regret, maybe something about themselves, and overall just had a good time listening. So, with that said, this has been the regret episode. I did not, in fact, regret making this, and I'll see you guys next time.